You may have heard that Glasgow's Free Pride event banned a group of people. Well, I say group of people. They didn't ban a group of people. They banned people who do a certain thing. Well, again, actually, they didn't ban people who do a certain thing. They've just banned people who do a certain thing and make it apparent that they do that sort of thing. You can do it, just don't do it there. Don't let people know you do it. That is disgusting. You know, don't let kids see it, for God's sake. Don't let it influence vulnerable people. Glasgow Free Pride banned drag performers. In another example of death sentence of the author, they took the idea that doing this, just this act, may offend transgender people, and so, you know, intent doesn't matter, you can't do it here. Because obviously, the stance of a pride event should be, if something you do offends people, hide it away. Absolutely do not parade it out. Just make sure society feels more and more offended by it. Create a source where you can say, well, you can't do this because it offends transgender people and hurts them. You know, say, your choice of action runs counter to my progressive viewpoints. You mustn't do this in public. It just blows my mind because it's so much like what I see in games criticism. They look at a game and they say, here's this creative work. I interpret it like this, and then rather than just invoking death of the author to say, well, my interpretation is valid because I don't need to know what the author was thinking, I can still read into this. They use it to say, this is what this does, this is the effect it has, you need to change it. Now, I don't disagree with the premise. Of course you can talk about something you've experienced and your interpretation based on your life experience, without taking into account the creator, but the meaning I take from that is, everything's okay then. It's down to you to deal with that. It is not down to you to make sure the world changes to cater to your interpretation. You know, you can't cut the author out for your interpretation and then put them back in when you're trying to hold them responsible for your interpretation that you cut their intent out of. But the people who come at it differently, I call what they invoke death sentence of the author. They say, because I can read into this, others will read into this the same thing and it damages society. Games need to change to stop having this effect on people, because this being out there hurts XYZ marginalized group because of the way they or others around them interpret it. And this brings me back to what this video is focused on. The organizers of this event have taken drag performance, something that is creative. They have looked at it and critiqued it. They have said, some may interpret it like this. They have gone beyond saying that interpretation is valid, because you know, intent doesn't affect how you interpret it. And they have said, this is damaging, this can offend people, this can harm a marginalized group. So just like what games press does with video games. The difference here being, these are not just critics. These are people with some amount of control. And what do when they share the same arguments as games press? They fucking ban it, of course, because all of these critiques are arguments for censorship. That's why people with power who use the same arguments that these critics use get rid of stuff, while the critics are just trying to encourage society to make things unacceptable and get rid of it. Moving on, the argument hit a bump, because although it hinges on the idea that the person doing the creativity doesn't matter, in this case, the protection of this group catches people in that group, so it fell apart. In their effort to protect trans people, they have excluded trans people who do drag performance. The solution? Not to allow drag performance, but to allow drag performance if you are trans. If you are not trans, you cannot perform drag there. There are multiple problems with this, and I can't see how they're going to get around this. The first that comes to mind is, why is it different? Are they saying the intent is different? Are you saying that when a cis person does it, they are intending to hurt trans people? Because that's absolute fucking nonsense. I was just watching Joan Rivers talk to RuPaul. I mean, you can go listen to him talk to her and he addresses a bunch of stuff. There is absolutely no intent to cause any harm or anything like that there. And yet, he would be banned from this event for harming people, I guess. Or rather, he would not be allowed to perform at this event. So you can surmise that the idea to ban drag performance is not down to drag performance itself being interpreted as trans-misogynistic or whatever. It is also not down to intent, because how could you know? And what a horrible outlook to presume that a drag performer who isn't transgender wants to hurt transgender people. So does it go a step on from that? Is it because they presume that transgender people who see cisgender people in drag will think that the cisgender person is doing it to hurt them? But again, that is death sentence of the author. That is taking their creativity away from any known intent or context, saying it is to do it at the expense of them, and then laying that judgment on the person doing it and saying, because of that, you cannot do it. And if you go for the argument that, well, society sees it that way, what the fuck is a pride event doing enforcing what they see as society's view? I thought the whole point of pride was to challenge that. But instead, you want to set the standard that someone who is not trans performing drag is shameful. You are saying these people are choosing to do something that harms trans people. You don't think society will see that as shameful? Why not try to make it understood that that intent is not there and it means something else? Why not get rid of the offense rather than hiding the thing that offends people, allowing it to stay as something that is seen as offensive and hurting people who have no intent to hurt anyone else, and if you understood why they were doing it, you wouldn't be hurt. You know, promoting understanding and tolerance. Something I would previously have imagined an organizer of an event like this would want to promote. But instead we get more traditional societal standards. Now I am not gay, trans, queer, whatever, so I might be off the mark, but I can imagine another problem. Haven't you also excluded closeted trans drag performers? So now, closeted trans drag performers cannot do it at your event, because this rule makes it so that anyone in drag at your event must be trans. Surely they are ultra marginalized in the context of catering to their needs. But really, in all of this, I am just playing devil's advocate. I don't think any of my arguments matter. All of this is power play and special snowflakeism. It has nothing to do with inclusion or progress. You have created a pride event in which people have less freedom to be themselves and explore what they want to explore than they do in everyday life. What are you going to ban next time? Perhaps men saying they're gay. There's a lot of reporting on gay men being transphobic. People might be uncomfortable around them. So there you go. If you want to go down this path of progress, my advice is ban gays from Pride. But, as usual, that's just another one of my harmful opinions.